All right. So, very excited to introduce the speaker today, Katy Ripp. So, Katy is an ICF certified coach, business mentor, podcast host, serial entrepreneur, and writer dedicated to helping others live authentically and abundantly. So, through her courses, blog, and community building efforts, she empowers individuals to overcome limiting beliefs, reclaim their time and energy, and embrace their personal values. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Katy. Katy, take it away.
Gosh, thank you, Andy. I am so excited to be here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here because I've got a little slide deck for us all. So give me 1 second while I figure out my tech here. It's like the first day I've ever used Zoom, but I'm going to do it. Give me 1 second here. Let's see if I can figure this out. I'm going to do it, Andy, I promise.
There it is.
There it is. Yay. Yay.
Looking good, looking good.
Okay, perfect. So thank you so much for joining me today and the American Family DreamBank. I love the DreamBank so much. I was introduced to it actually last year. I was able to coach at their Dream Camp, and I have met some of the most amazing people at the DreamBank, and I am really, really honored to be here. A fair warning, I have somewhat of a truck driver mouth, so I'm going to try to keep it in check today, but if I slip, I'm so sorry. But I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy days today to get really real about boundaries. This is what we're going to talk about. This is a topic really near and dear to my heart, so I tend to get really excited about it because I believe that this is really really important thing for entrepreneurs, especially to really embrace. So if you're ready, let's get started. A little about me. I am a serial entrepreneur. I own a coffee shop, an ice cream shop, and also I'm a lifestyle coach, a business mentor, and a podcast host. My podcast is called Actually I Can. So if you're looking for a podcast where we talk about real stuff, I'm your gal. I'm also a recovering people pleaser. So if you are also a recovering people pleaser, I would love to know that in the chat. You can just raise your hand. I really had to learn the hard way about setting boundaries as an entrepreneur. And trust me, burnout is really not a good look on anybody. And I'm going to show you that in the next slide here. Today is really, I'm just really hopeful that we can all learn together about boundaries, but hopefully you can learn from some of my mistakes. Ta-da! Here is my before. Let's just say I've earned my boundary setting badge the hard way. At this time on the left, I owned 3 brick and mortar businesses that were open from 6 a.m. until midnight, 7 days a week. And I was also managing a team of about 50 employees. But on top of that, I had a really bad nightly wine habit, if anybody else can relate there. I thought it was self-care, but really I was just sort of medicating my own burnout. And unfortunately, it was just, I had 0 boundaries and I was totally burned out. So hence the before picture. So I used to think that hustling 24/7 was the only way to succeed. And really, that meant saying yes to everything and everyone. And I thought it was me doing a good job, but my work ethic was so tied up into my character, I didn't really know which way was up. I was exhausted and hungover and overwhelmed and running on less than empty. So eventually I realized that burnout is really just not a badge of honor. It is a place where we actually don't please anybody, least of all ourselves. So on the right, I started with getting sober, which is where I learned that setting boundaries wasn't just about saying no, but it was about saying yes to the things that were really mattered to me, like my health and my sanity. And what I was spending my precious time and energy and money on. So if you're here, maybe you're feeling a little bit stretched thin and a little bit overwhelmed. And so I want you to know that you're in good company here. So by the end of this session, I really hope that you'll understand why boundaries are actually our superpower and not something that we are just like saying no to all the time. So I want to leave you equipped with practical tools and set them without guilt and feel a sense of freedom in your business and your personal life. What we're really here for is peace. We want peace from anxiety, peace from worry, peace from guilt. And so boundaries are really one thing that we can work on together to try and move forward in that. So we're going to understand why boundaries are your superpower. Hopefully some practical tools to help you, some scripts and that sort of thing. And then a renewed sense of freedom in your life. Okay, so what are boundaries? It seems like a simple question, right? So boundaries actually are, think of boundaries as a protective bubble around your time, your energy, and your overall well-being. They're not here to keep people out entirely, but more to define how people have access to you as a whole. So boundaries tell people what is and okay inside your space. So it's sort of like, hey, I love you, but I'm not going to answer work emails at midnight. Or, Mom, thank you so much for your advice about raising my kids, but I got it. Thank you. We don't need to be assholes about this. We are human and we have permission to voice our own needs. So I'm going to give you some practical scenarios here. And these are just examples. I'm going to give you the tools going forward to do this, but here are some scenarios. So for instance, when your mom insists on giving you unsolicited advice about everything, a boundary might sound like, thank you for sharing, but I've got this, or I'll let you know when I need help. Maybe because many of us entrepreneurs are working from home, your partner doesn't really respect your work hours. So you might say, I'm unavailable for the next 2 hours. Let's chat after that. Or even the classic, I'm in do not disturb mode, which is my favorite mode to be in. And I've got a really great tool for you guys that I'm going to send to you. So don't worry, this is coming for you. Then scenario 3, and I'm sure that we can all relate to this. A client sends an email at 9 p.m. marked urgent. I value our collaboration and want to ensure I'm giving your project my full attention. I'll review this during my business hours and get back to you tomorrow. So this script, which I'm going to give you later, this script really communicates respect for your client's needs while also reinforcing boundaries and your work hours. So by stating when you'll respond and emphasizing that your commitment to quality, you make it clear that your boundaries allow you to be more effective and more focused. We'll get into some tools a little bit later, but this is just an idea of what we're looking at. So why are boundaries a must for entrepreneurs? We need boundaries for time management, for our mental health. How many of you guys feel like you are completely burned out and your mental health is suffering? Not only your physical health, but like actually your mental health. So we need to, as entrepreneurs and possibly recovering people pleasers, we want to do everything for everyone. And it's a blessing and a curse. It doesn't mean that you can never do anything for anyone ever again. But without boundaries, we end up as exhausted puddles of ambitious people, like curled up on the floor, like Calgon, take me away, which I realize ages me. Tell me if you remember the Calgon commercials. We need boundaries for our time management, our mental health, and to avoid the dreaded burnout. So boundaries are crucial for effective time management, especially for us entrepreneurs who are juggling pretty much everything, right? Like we're the bookkeepers, we're the social media managers, we're the janitors, we're the accountants, we're the sales managers, we're the marketers, we're the networkers, and the human resources department. We need to set clear limits on how we are spending our time and how you can prioritize what truly matters to avoid overcommitting and making room for what actually lights you up. Okay, what about our mental health? So when you guard your mental space, we're better equipped to handle life's challenges and show up for the people and projects that matter most to you. Without boundaries, our mental health can suffer. Constantly saying yes to everyone's demand can lead to feelings of overwhelm and anxiety and the dreaded resentment. Healthy boundaries protect your emotional well-being, giving you the space to recharge and reflect, and also taking care of your own needs. Remember, we cannot fill from an empty cup. So I often hear people say, well, I love to take care of other people. I get it. I do too. I'm a total people pleaser. I love to take care of other people. It's part of who I am as a person. But who's taking care of you? Who's pleasing you? If you're a people pleaser, who's out there pleasing you? And I would love to see that in the chat. If you can answer that question, who is taking care of you if you are not the one doing it? So if you want to put that in the chat, I would love to hear how many of you have people actually pleasing you. If that chat ends up being a desert, you're in the right place today. So let's talk about avoiding burnout. So burnout is very real, and especially under the entrepreneurship umbrella. And it's a serious risk, and especially for those of us who are driven and ambitious and full of ideas. When we overextend ourselves, we fail to set boundaries and we drain our physical and emotional energy. Boundaries help you pace yourself and maintain a sustainable level of engagement within your work. They also allow you to take breaks and rest and enjoy your life outside of your responsibilities. Because why are we doing this if we are not trying to enjoy our lives? And so many of us entrepreneurs feel like we don't have time to actually even enjoy our lives. So if you're a business owner in this group, we certainly didn't start our businesses to get a fast pass ticket to burnout. That was not the intention. Most likely we started them to gain more freedom and more flexibility. But no one really told us that the only way to get those things is to set boundaries. And so that's what I'm here for. So we're going to talk about the actual ways to set boundaries. So this is a real party, the guilt and people-pleasing party. So you are still a kind and thoughtful and compassionate person, even when you say no. Setting boundaries doesn't take away your goodness. It actually protects and honors it. So most of us were raised to believe in that when we say no, it's bad and that we're disappointing people. But I'm here to tell you folks that the world does not end. I have tested this. The world is still here, even though I set some boundaries. So I'd love it if you, Andy said, please get out a piece of pen or piece of paper and a pen. Please just jot down a recent situation where you felt guilty for setting or wanting to set a boundary, but something what held you back from doing that. Tell us what was involved. So was it something at home? Was it something personal? Or who was involved? Was it a family member? Was it a staff person? Was it somebody on social media? Something that you said no to, some PTO person? And what do you feel like you would have lost if you said no? So you can reflect on that, whether that loss actually would have happened, and if it was a true statement, or if it was just your inner critic's exaggeration. So I'm going to give you guys just a couple of seconds here to think about it and write it down. If you feel like you want to share it, I would love to hear it. Andy, you could help me figure that out.
Yeah. All righty. Christmas plans with my immediate family. I felt I would make mom cry and disappoint everyone.
Mm-hmm. So, and the question here is like, would mom actually cry? And if mom would cry, is that your responsibility? Is her feeling to that your responsibility? And what kind of Christmas plans could you do instead that would have aligned a little bit better with your family plans or your immediate needs versus pleasing your mom? So those are like perfect examples, and we're going to actually get into a couple of real life examples just like that. Any other work examples out there?
We'll give it a few moments here as people
Sure.
might be typing as well. Not staying late when everyone else is, even though my tasks and job are done.
Ooh, I love that. And the question there is, what's the reason you're staying? Like, what are you proving to someone by staying late, even though you're done? So those are the questions. Like, they are simply just questions. Like, why, when we start thinking about why am I doing something, is who's rewarded from this? Who's getting the reward out of this? Because you are certainly not. So staying there late, what are you proving to someone else? Or what's the reward?
We had a couple more coming too here. So another one was, I should have, excuse me, I gotta scroll here. One of my wholesale customers asked me to help her out, put together a day retreat. I was flattered, but in retrospect, it zapped my available time and stressed me out.
We're going to talk about this exact thing in a couple of slides. So thank you so much for giving that. That's actually a perfect example. We're going to talk about that.
Cool.
Okay, amazing. Thank you guys so much for sharing. I think when we are in meetings like this, it's always nice to know, even if you're across the country or whatever, like there's a nice little tribe of people that need to set boundaries. There's many, many, many of us. So you are not alone in this. I think it's such a good reminder to know that we are together in this and that everybody struggles with boundaries. Some people don't struggle with boundaries, but that doesn't mean that they haven't done work to do it. And there's boundaries that are like feel really ugly, and then there's ways to give boundaries that actually feel really good. So we're going to talk about that. Before we go on, we're going to actually talk about outsourcing. Um, Outsourcing is sort of one of those uncomfortable topics at first, because the first thing that people say about outsourcing is, I can do it myself. I love it. I DIY a bunch of shit all the time. I love DIYing stuff. Doesn't mean we should do it. Or if you're in business and possibly you're a solo entrepreneur, you're like, well, I can't afford to outsource that. I have to do everything myself. And I get it. But just because we can do something doesn't mean we should do something. And outsourcing isn't just about getting things off your plate. It's actually an incredibly effective boundary setting tool because it helps us focus on what we really need to be doing, whether that's growing our business or taking care of our health or simply reclaiming our sanity. So think of outsourcing as creating space for what really matters in your life. So it frees up your time so you can focus on those high impact and revenue generating tasks instead of getting stuck in the weeds of admin work or social media management, or heaven forbid you have to make your own website, right? Like we're taking all that time to learn the skill that we could just pay somebody else to do. Here's the kicker too. We don't need to just be doing this in our businesses. We can be doing this in our personal lives. And again, our personal lives and our professional lives are so intertwined when we're entrepreneurs that it's hard to see that there's a line at all. It's so blurred. So we also need to pay attention to our personal lives. So hiring a house cleaner or using a service that does your grocery shopping or even getting a virtual assistant for your inbox. These are all boundaries around your energy and your time. So spending 3 hours trying to design your own website doesn't make sense when you could spend those 3 hours doing actually pretty much anything else. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit of a personal story. We're going to talk about Yolanda. If you have been around me for a while, you know about Yolanda. Yolanda does my laundry. She does our family's laundry. She organizes our pantry. She picks up before the cleaning lady, right? Have you ever heard like when you're in that tornado of cleaning your house before the cleaning lady comes and the kids are like, why are we cleaning before the cleaning lady comes? Well, that's what Yolanda does for our family. So after years of getting super frustrated and super resentful because I was the one that was doing all the things like the laundry, the dishes, the doctor's appointment, all of those things, I had slid into that role as a mother and a wife, and I understand it. I just was so fed up with actually doing those things, and I suck at it. Like, I'm not a good laundry person. I'm not a good a good domestic person. So finally, I hired Yolanda. And Yolanda does those things. I just like finally gave myself permission to hire that out. And so now I spend those precious hours, which Yolanda is at my house right now, actually. I spend those precious 3 hours a week to pay for Yolanda. So everyone in my house has clean laundry. I get to spend the time doing what I love, like being here with you guys. And I also get to pay her money so she can take care of her family. I don't know why she likes to do laundry. She loves it. I don't. So it's a very easy trade-off. It's a win, win, win. I had to give myself permission. And really, in the end, the only person that's really hurt by this is my mother. And my mother is only hurt by this because she feels she failed as like a domestic trainer. Like I was supposed to be able to do this as a daughter and I don't do it well. So she's sad about that. She's going to be okay. She's fine. So there's lots of other tasks that you can outsource, and outsource doesn't necessarily mean that you're outsourcing another human being. Maybe it's a service. So for instance, maybe you have somebody doing administrative tasks like your emails or your scheduling, or maybe you hire a social media content person. Maybe you find a bookkeeper because that's something that gets pushed off until the very end and then you have to do it right before taxes. Or again, household tasks. Give yourself permission. You don't have to do it. Nobody's telling you you have to do the housework. You can just give yourself permission to do that. And if you need permission, I'm happy to like write out permission slips at the end. Like Katie told me I could hire somebody to do my laundry. It's fine. Okay, types of boundaries. And this kind of goes back with what we're talking about, like what are we protecting? Again, we're protecting our time, we're protecting our energy, things around our energy, and like really our mental health here. So biggest thing is let's figure out how we can get more of our precious time back. Okay, before I get too far into types, we need to talk about urgency. Urgency is a myth. Let me say that again. Urgency is a myth. We live in a world right now that thrives on urgency. Emails marked ASAP, clients who need answers yesterday, all the notifications like ping, 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 ping. We do not, this is a myth. We need to be careful of our urgency trap. So there are very few things in life that are actually emergencies. Most emergencies are simply other people's priorities dressed up in a sense of urgency just to grab your attention. So in my own businesses, and again, we own a coffee shop and an ice cream shop. We used to own a wine bar. So we are serving the public in a brick and mortar almost every day. But in my businesses, our mantra here is we are not saving babies. We are serving coffee. We are serving ice cream. If shit hits the fan, we like just shut the doors. We don't save babies. And so I know that sounds a little dramatic and probably kind of funny, but everybody can get real jacked up when it gets really busy or a customer comes in and they need their stuff like yesterday, which by the way, they only need a cup of coffee super fast. So we just don't save babies here. We serve coffee. And if you can't wait for a couple of minutes for your coffee, we might not want you as a customer. And I know that sounds crazy because we want everybody as a customer and we want to please everybody, but that just isn't the case. So I actually do have a pediatric NICU nurse that works for me and she does save babies. So we're always like, hey, are you doing what Chris does? If you're not, don't worry about it. So why urgency is a trap? It steals our focus. When we buy into this myth, we get sucked into a reactive mode where we're constantly firefighting instead of thoroughly planning. It steals our focus and it takes away from our flow and forces us to prioritize somebody else's needs above our own. Again, we need to stop doing that. So the stress that we feel that when we're scrambling to meet unrealistic timelines doesn't just disappear. It actually builds up and it compounds and it makes us more prone to anxiety and burnout in the end. So plus making decisions in a time of urgency often leads to mistakes and regret. Good times. Okay. So a couple of things that we can actually do. The next time someone says something is urgent, just pause for a second. You have more time than you think you do. Take a breath, set your priorities, and remember, you're allowed to slow down. You don't have to do everything immediately. Your well-being is also important. So most urgent matters can wait. Again, are we saving babies? And if they can't, it's not your job to fix everything instantly. You might be able to fix it, but doesn't need to be fixed right this second. Does everything else need to be put on hold to do that thing right this second? So give yourself permission to respond on your terms, not on somebody else's timeline. And this is important. And I'm going to give you some practical examples. This is actually how we set the boundaries, which everybody's been waiting for, right? Okay, email. How many times are you getting emails past hours? So imagine this, you decide to only check your email twice a day. Lovely boundary. I'm only checking my email at 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. That sounds lovely, doesn't it? Like we don't check our email between 10 and 4 or after 4 until 10. It sounds amazing. But almost immediately when you set that boundary, you get an email from somebody at 10:30 a.m. and then you get another email from them at noon that said, "Did you see my email?" Okay, so here's how to handle that situation with grace and confidence. So, and I'm going to give you a lot of these tools. So after this, I'll get your email addresses or however you signed up, and I'll get you some of these tools. I have a little packet for my DreamBank people that I'm going to send, and these are actually scripts that are written out for you. So I understand your concern, and I want to ensure I'm giving your email the attention it deserves. That's why I only check and respond to emails twice a day, so I can be fully present and focused. So you'll notice how you're acknowledging their concern while sticking to your boundary. You're not apologizing or backtracking. You're simply explaining why this isn't actually a win for them too. Or you can set an autoresponder. So autoresponders are not the devil. So if you set an autoresponder, what you're doing is you're setting an expectation and you're putting the ball in the customer or the client or the staff member's court. So it's not your responsibility how they react to your automatic responder. In addition, if an autoresponder goes out to the client or customer, they know you actually got the email instead of feeling ghosted if it gets buried in your inbox and they have to reach out again because they don't know if you got it. So you can see how this can get sort of ugly. These things can like sort of snowball. So one of the autoresponders here, like, thank you for reaching out. I've received your message and want to let you know that I make sure to respond thoughtfully and carefully. Because of this, I may not always respond immediately, but I'll get back to you as soon as I can give your email the attention it deserves. If your message is time sensitive, please feel free to insert your phone number because nobody likes to call. Otherwise, I look forward to connecting soon. So this just sets a really like good email boundary. This is really all about reframing your boundaries as a benefit to the person that you're giving it to, but in not just giving the benefit to yourself. You're more focused and less stressed, and you'll be able to do your best work during those set hours. So you don't have to do this immediately. Maybe you send an autoresponder that says, "I'll get back to you before the end of the day." But by all means, get back to them before the end of the day. So this can't be unrealistic. This can't be an unrealistic boundary. You don't have to do it all in one sitting either. It can just be a really short, okay, maybe I only check my emails 5 times a day instead of every time an email comes in and I get a notification, I'm checking my email. People can get really bogged down in their email boxes. So if you have a email box that's out of control, just raise your hand. I'd love to hear about how many of you guys feel like email is one of those things you want to scratch your eyes out. Anybody raising their hand? Oh yeah, I see raised hands. I love it.
Yep. Okay. Do you just want me to?
I just want to know how many.
Perfect. Okay.
I can see quite a few of them. So
Okay.
amazing. So again, you might not be alone. Okay, so I saw this actually on the internet the other day, and of course it's true because it's on the internet. But this was just got an after-hour emails from my new CEO, and noticed he added this little disclaimer: well-being notice on the bottom of his email. Receiving this email outside of normal working hours Managing work and life responsibilities is unique for everyone. I have sent this email at a time that works for me. Please respond at a time that works for you. This is a perfect example. Well, everybody should be putting this on the bottom of their email signature. But also, I am an early riser. So I do a lot of my work before 5:30 in the morning. That doesn't mean that I expect an email back at 5:30 in the morning. And so a lot of times we're assuming that when we're getting emails after hours, before hours, on the weekend, that kind of thing, that those people are expecting responses and it feels really urgent. It might not be. It might be that that person just has the time to do it and it just happened to land in your email box at that time. So also a good question like, are they expecting a response? It might be a very simple, are you expecting a response right now? Because if not, I'll get back to you on Monday. If that feels like a really good place for you to be. I'd be super curious to know if anybody has something like this or they've seen something like this recently in anybody else's email. Or if you're going to implement it now that you've seen it. I would love to know that.
Lots of appreciation for it. Some folks saying they have not seen it. Oh, my wedding photographer had one in her email. So,
oh, a wedding photographer probably has lots of urgent emails. So,
and then for what it's worth, leadership within American Family, many of them do have something that denotes this too.
oh, thank you, American Family. Like, start it. It's amazing. Okay. As a side note, this is something I work with my clients, my business mentoring clients a lot on aligning your business map, your actual business values with your customers is a skill. So ask yourself if you really want to be working with people that are in constant urgency mode, or they get upset about you spending time with your family, or making comments about you being on vacation, or using your time as your own. These are things that we need to start aligning our businesses with. Is this a value of mine that I'm constantly feeling like I'm behind the eight ball, that I'm constantly like just putting out fires? We get to choose who we serve. There are 8 billion people in the world. There's probably more customers than you think you have. And we need to start to align with the customers that are actually appreciating us and respecting our boundaries. So again, I'm going to give you some practical tools here. I don't expect that you are like, oh my God, I'm going to set all these boundaries and I'm going to lose all these customers. There are customers out there. I'm a customer that I absolutely respect when people have things to do in their lives. And I also love to support small business. So if you're a small business owner that has boundaries, I want to actually buy from you. I think that that's how we change the culture. Okay, this is my favorite. This is my this is actually the do not disturb sign that I have hanging on my door right this minute. So this is, I literally created this because what was happening is I work in the same building as my ice cream shop and my coffee shop. And my coffee shop is open from 6 a.m. in the morning until 8 p.m. at night. And sometimes the ice cream shop is open until 10 at night. And what was ending up happening is my door was always open, right? Like I have an open door policy, but people were coming in asking me for sort of the dumbest things. Like they could have gotten the answer somewhere else. And what it did was completely disrupt my flow. If I was in the flow of answering emails, or I was recording a podcast, or I was doing anything else, people were just sort of barging into my office. So I have specific times where my office door is open. Otherwise, this please do not disturb goes on my door. Now, I kind of make it kitschy, but it's real. So here's what I have. So please do not disturb. And you can make your own. I'm also going to give you this template that's editable so you can laminate it and put it on your own doors. But the idea behind this is please do not disturb. I am doing XYZ. Instead, try to get a hold of me this way, unless here are the emergencies listed on the back. So I am in a meeting or a phone call. I'm finally getting to a task I keep putting off. I am in the zone. I am signing your paycheck. Like, it also benefits them for me to be working. Instead, please write down your question and slip it under the door. This has happened quite a bit. I know that there's little like stacks of paper underneath my door. I take care of it when I'm done doing whatever I'm doing. Ask a coworker for help. So many of my staff already know the answer to the thing that they're asking me for. They don't, I give them complete autonomy. They don't need me to answer if they should be cutting the bread diagonally or straight. Like, make a decision. Text me your question. Lots of times I have a, like, I'm in doing something, but I also have a notification on my computer that if a text comes in and I don't have my do not disturb on, I can really quickly respond to it. Or set up a meeting with me. If it's something important that we need to like actually meet about and you need to see me in person, send me a text and we'll set up a meeting. And then the emergencies. So what are emergencies, right? Like, do babies need saving right this second? So times you should interrupt me. Again, this is sort of funny, but it does make it real for a lot of people. Like, the building is on fire. You are on fire. I am on fire. Your coworker is being verbally or physically abused, or you are abusing a coworker or a client or a staff member or a customer. Life or limb, a singing telegram or publisher's clearinghouse is for me, or other, use your best judgment. So like, what is actually an emergency? Do you need to interrupt me? It's not that I don't want to talk to them. It's just I have specific times that I need to get my shit done and you need to wait. That's it. It's not mean. It's just the way it is. So anybody have a do not disturb sign or love this idea or hate it? Would love to hear.
Lots of praise coming in for the sign.
Good, good. Okay, so these are your energy examples. This is how we're protecting our energy. So I'm sure you all guys have all heard the phrase, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. And this is how we protect our energy. Think of it like your phone battery. And my battery is almost always dead. Anybody that's sitting in this crowd right now knows that I'm always on like low power mode. But do you ever turn your phone on airplane mode or, get out of a whole bunch of apps because you have to save your battery for like a call coming up, or you're running through the airport and you need somebody to pick you up later? Like, we save our energy on our phones. Like, we save the battery life on our phone. This is what I'm talking about with energy. We are saving our energy, our battery life in our own lives. So we need to get out of apps. We need to get out of certain things that are sucking up our time and sucking up our energy. And we need to turn us on airplane mode. So yet saying yes to things that don't excite you or align with your goals are sucking your energy. They are total energy vampires. So something that's like sort of a meh to, like, I don't really know if I want to do that. Those are just like, those are things that we don't need to be saying yes to. And those are hard. I get it. Like, I totally understand. Boundaries aren't just about like protecting your time. They are also about protecting your energy and the things that bring you joy. Because when we focus on the things that truly excite and align with you, you're unstoppable, I promise you. So if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. You can do this temporarily. You don't have to do this forever, but something that like, we need to switch our mindset. And so if we're thinking to ourselves like, I mean, maybe I would like it, but I'm not really sure, that it's a hell no right now. So temporarily doesn't have to be forever. So again, write down one boundary you can implement today. Maybe it's protecting your time, maybe it's protecting your energy, or maybe it's protecting your focus. And you can share it in the chat if you feel comfortable. Okay, handling pushback and staying firm. This is what we've all been waiting for. Here's the thing. Boundaries are going to piss some people off. There's just like no way around it. And I'm so sorry if that's like heartbreaking for you. No, some people are not going to like this. You've always been a yes person and you've always been made available. You've always been accommodating. And then one day you set a boundary and suddenly people act like you've canceled Christmas. I get it. I totally understand. But the truth is we have to be okay with that discomfort. Boundaries are not easy. They are simple, yes, but they are not easy. We feel guilty. We feel like we're letting somebody down. We feel like we're disappointing something. It is simply a feeling and it will pass. So setting boundaries means honoring your well-being, even if it ruffles some feathers along the way, which it will. There's like no doubt about this. Like just accept that it's going to ruffle some feathers. The feathers will eventually come down, I promise you. And this is about knowing your limits and protecting your energy. Their temporary discomfort, which it's temporary, their temporary discomfort is doesn't outweigh your priority to prioritize your well-being. It just doesn't. People don't get to replace our own well-being with their well-being. So we've got some examples here, which again, I'm gonna give you these at the end, so you don't have to necessarily write these down. But these are your shields. So think of them as your shields. This is how we protect our bubble. And feel free to use these scripts as protection. It might sound weird at first. It's fine. Just accept that it's going to be weird. So I understand this is important to you. Here's what I can do. So again, we are hearing them and we're offering something. We don't have to offer nothing. We're offering something. So for instance, this would be an example of your employee approaches you and requests unexpected time off, but at a time that you're kind of busy. You just can't really just say yes. So I understand this is important to you. Here's what I can do. I can approve a half day tomorrow, and we can look at rescheduling some of your other responsibilities to make that work, to make that half day work. If you really need the full day, we'll need to find coverage. So let's discuss how we can make that happen together. So it's not just like, well, I guess I'm going to work for you then because you're just not going to show up. It is just simply like, I can try to help you with this, but this isn't just like nope, you don't have to work tomorrow. We deal this with a lot of baristas that need prom off. For instance, the first year that I was the owner, the prom came up and people were like, oh, I can't open on the day of prom at 5:30 in the morning because I got to get my hair done at 8. Prom isn't until 7 at night. You can wait, right? We can wait. At first, I was like, yeah, no problem. You need to go to prom. The answer is yes, they're still going to prom. They can wait until noon to get their hair done. Okay, so how about can you bring cookies to the PTO meeting tonight? Depending on what time you get that, it's tonight. So thank you for thinking of me, but I'm unable to help tonight. Period. You don't need to apologize. You don't need to give them a reason. You don't need to look for an excuse. This shuts off the room for negotiation. So the goal is to be firm but gracious. And you don't have to feel pressured to justify it. Also, no is a complete sentence. Let me say that again for the people in the back. No is a complete sentence. The answer can just be no. You don't have to apologize. You don't have to look for an excuse. I would encourage anybody who wants to say no, just try it once. No. See what happens. What's the worst that can happen? People are going to be like, well, why? You can tell them a reason or not tell them a reason, but just try no, not with a sorry, not with a, hey, I've got this going on instead, not with a lie because actually you want to binge on Netflix in your sweatpants. Instead, you're going to lie and say, hey, I've got to go to my kid's basketball game that night. No, no, period. I know that's hard and I get it, but boundaries do get easier with time. I understand, the people pleasers in the room are like, oh my God, I'm leaving this meeting right now. This is making me super uncomfortable. Stick with me just for a few more minutes. I promise this is going to get easier with time. Setting boundaries actually gets easier the more you do it, just like anything. So at first you might feel like a broken record, like you're constantly saying no to people or reminding people of your limits, but eventually something amazing happens. People stop asking. Now, again, the people pleasers in the room, like, oh my God, what if they stop asking me to do all the things that they've always known that I'm like good at and I can't do those things anymore? It doesn't mean that you can never help again. It just means that we are helping, we're doing the things that light us up instead of the things that we're like, I don't actually want to do that. So what happens is when you do say yes, you are 100% in. You are we have the things in our lives that light us up. Instead of doing 10 things half-assed, we get to do one thing to the best of our ability, which makes your commitments more intentional and you get to show up and be fully present and deliver your best. So you're not depriving anyone of your support. You don't have to say no to everything all the time. This is just ensuring that when you do say yes, it's really meaningful and really impactful. And that is a win for everybody. It doesn't sound like it, but it is really a win. Okay, so I've got some takeaways for you today. One thing, hello. Okay, so we can't be everything to everyone, right? We've discovered that. You didn't need me to tell you that. Like, you already know that we don't need, we cannot be everything to everyone, even though we try. We have to give ourselves permission to guard our time and our energy because you are a powerhouse and powerhouse need fuel. You need something to fill your cup, and actually do this. Setting boundaries is how we get that. And boundaries are not selfish. We have been told all of our lives, we've been sold this bullshit bag of goods that boundaries are selfish. No, they are not. They're self-preservation. They are not selfish. So protecting our precious lives from burnout is the ultimate in self-care. We've been sold that a bag of Doritos and a glass of Cabernet in a bubble bath is self-care. It's not. It is boundaries. And I know that's not super sexy, but it is the truth. So how many of us would love to live a life free of guilt? That guilt, like that pit in your stomach, that anxiety, that worry. I get it. As you feel more comfortable with setting boundaries, I promise that the guilt is going to dissipate and it will become habitual. It will become a habit that you get to do the things that fill you with joy, not the things that like suck your soul. But it does take practice. Sorry. So your life and your joy is worth protecting. You are valued. You are worthy of protecting yourself. This is for all of the people pleasers out there. Again, who is pleasing you? If we are pleasing everybody, we don't have time to please ourselves. And if that answer is blank for you, like who is pleasing you, you are going to have to step in and you're going to have to start pleasing yourself. I told you I was going to get sort of excited and sort of wound up about this. This is what happens. I knew it was coming. Okay, so if you need permission to try a boundary, permission granted. I will write permission slips after this. If you need a written permission slip somewhere to hang up on your desk, to put on your laptop, to put on your bathroom mirror, I am happy to write out permission slips. What I'm really hoping for is that you feel empowered enough to write your own permission slips. If you spent the time to log on to this meeting, that the title was Setting Boundaries, it means that you actually need to set boundaries and you've already given yourself enough of a permission to take the time out of your day to do that. So please take that as a sign that you are actually worthy of doing that. Okay. All right, friends. Oh, I don't know what happened there, but in any case, thank you for joining me today. So setting boundaries like a boss. We have learned a lot of things, and there's a lot of really practical things in here that I'm going to send you. So don't be fearful that you like miss something. I think this is also recorded, Andy. So I really hope that you're walking away with some tools here and a fresh perspective on how to protect your time and energy and your sanity. Like, your mental health is important. We cannot do this on and on and on and on forever. We just can't. So I really want to thank you for your time and your energy and your participation today. I want to thank the American Family DreamBank. I love you so much. I'm going to see you next week too. I'm super excited about that. If you're ready to dive deeper, I am taking one-on-one clients. You can find me through my coaching programs. I left some QR codes here. You can work with me through coaching. You can follow me on Instagram. You can listen to me on the hashtag Actually I Can podcast. We just talk about very real stuff, death, money, entrepreneurship, all of the crazy things that nobody likes to talk about. I do have a Love Monday newsletter. So if you are having a hard time loving Mondays, my newsletter goes out every Monday morning. And it's just sort of full of my stories, but also some tips and tricks to love your life. So I just really want to thank everybody for being here. I'm going to stick around for a while, and we've got a Q&A here. So if you have to hop off, I totally understand, but I am here for Q&A.
Thank you so much, Katy. Thank
Yes.
you all for taking time out of your day to join us here. We'll give it a couple moments for folks to go ahead and type their questions out. Again, go ahead and use the Q&A function within Zoom to pass along those questions. Katy, here at DreamBank, we are a community that is built up of fellow fearless dreamers, and we always like to ask our presenters, what's one piece of advice you have for someone who is actively pursuing a dream right now?
Oh, set boundaries. I mean, that's an easy answer. For me personally, it has always been find a tribe. I find any kind of dream that you are following, whether it's entrepreneurship, a healthy lifestyle, a different lifestyle than you're trying, any kind of dream needs support. It can be very isolating to make any kind of change. So find a tribe, find somebody. We have all of these amazing resources, social media, places like the DreamBank where you're like actually bringing people together. There's probably people in this chat that like could very easily find each other. But find somebody that you connect with and ask them for resources. People like myself that I've already been through some of this, it is my goal in life to help people behind me or lateral, or I love to learn from other people. So you'd be surprised at how many people out there are really trying to help people that are getting started like myself. I have a ton of resources of people that are doing it just like I am or a little bit differently. A collaboration over competition. Please, let's just like find your resources, find your people. They're out there and they are looking for you too.
Thanks for that. Got a question that came in. Any hacks for cell phone distraction? I have to do social media for my business, but it can eat you alive. And before, Katy, you answer this, something that I certainly evaluated a couple years back. I went through and I manually changed all of my notifications so that I'm only receiving notifications for the things that I want to, not social updates, things of that nature. So, but I'm curious to hear your take on that, Katy.
Same. I have a very curated Instagram feed, a very curated Facebook feed. I'm pretty strict about my do not disturbs. When my do not disturbs are on, they're on, and they're on for a reason. So a lot of times we end up putting do not disturbs on, but then we're still like checking things. Really, when I'm like in a do not disturb mode, it means I'm not to be disturbed. So, but that is a practice, and that's something you actually have to physically do. The other thing is, yes, we have to be on social media. I'm on social media all the time. I also have a very curated feed, so I don't end up following things that are sucking my soul. So being very intentional about that. And if that means setting a timer, I'm a sucker for an egg timer. So I set timer, like physical timers, not just on your phone, but physical timers of like take 10 minutes on a timer, go through and really look at your notifications. You can do that on your phone. All of these like all of these tasks, all of these little like tidbits and things that are out here that you can find resources everywhere for this kind of stuff. There are apps that like turn things off. I actually just saw something the other day that like you have to do a certain amount of push-ups to get onto your Instagram feed or something. There's stuff out there. It just means that you have to follow it. Like you actually have to do it. It's not enough to be aware of it. You have to actually do something about it. So really just being intentional about what you're doing on social media. I know it's hard. We're fighting against the machine.
Katy, thanks again for such a wonderful presentation. We are at time, so we will go ahead and cap it there. Thank you all for taking time out of your day to join us here. Keep an eye out for we're constantly putting out new programming, so keep an eye out for our upcoming events. And with that being said, we will go ahead and see you all next time. Take care.
Bye, guys.